Y'all, today we need to talk about a gigantic part of the upcoming Wallaru update. I wanted to make a video completely just talking about this specific topic because damage is a big deal in Wiz. Whether you're a PvPer or a PvEer, it's probably one of your most important stats. And today we're going to be going over everything we know about what they're going to be doing to damage in the Wallaru update. It's a gigantic shift compared to what we're used to when a new world comes out. So the context of this, right? The Wallaru update is going to be a big world update, but they're also going to be reworking the jewel system in Wizard101. Now, you're gonna have certain wands. Instead of giving always a square socket, they might give a circle socket. You might have rings. Instead of them just giving a tier, circle, and square, maybe depending on the template, it might give more tiers, it might give more squares. There's gonna be a lot more customizability to stats. But one of the things that they're doing, adding on to this customizability, is also adding new types of jewels to make it easier for you to hit your stat maxes. To give you guys an idea of like what a stat max looks like, in PvP as a storm, I can only hit up to 183 damage right now. And if I go above that, I'm not actually gaining damage anymore. In PvE, there's a drop-off that happens after 220 damage. So, like, let's say that I had a, I don't know, like a Chompy Bronto mount on and a boon on this. Like, if I went the full mile, I'd have 221 damage, but it would start dropping off right after that. But now, they're going to be adding circle jewels that give damage. And according to one of the people working on this, for Storm anyways, it seems like the circle jewels are going to be 10% each for a maximum of 30%. What that means, y'all, is that your maximum damage when you're doing PvE is probably going to go from 220 if you're already at the max, all the way to 250, literally representing a nearly 15% increase. I could be wrong, but ever since they started messing around with stats, we've never had damage go up that much, and that makes a lot of sense. We've never had jewels that give damage. And the reason I'm citing this 250 number, I'm not like making this up like out of nowhere. Rapbeard on a recent stream, one of the devs that works on this game, I'll link the stream in the description, he's been giving me content for a whole week. He basically mentioned that the stat cap for Storm anyways, right, the highest damage school, it's going to go from what it is right now to like well over 200. We're talking like 220. Now, very, very important point. This number, right? This increase from 183 to 220, this is specifically about PvP. So we're talking about something that's lower than the current PvE stat max going up by that much. If something that used to be maxed at 183 is increasing by nearly 40%, then I think for PvE, what's right now a somewhat of a stat max at 220, I think it's going to go up all the way to 260. We're going to see potentially more challenging bosses, and you might want to switch around your pierce, your damage, your health in order to really adapt to the circumstances. That'd be the ideal situation. I hope this doesn't literally just make it easier just to like, I don't know, just Tempest spam. Like, I hope that's not what this does, but it is crazy. I feel like this is going to be an update where the wizard actually gets more powerful. I don't think I could really say that about Novus. Obviously, you could dual school a lot better, but it felt a little inaccessible. This seems like a pretty, you know, for your school, you can increase your power like crazy. Now, these stat caps changing so much has crazy implications across the game. For one, in PvP, right? Like, I'll show y'all what I'm talking about when it comes to stat maxes, especially for the people that don't do PvP. I'm running 212 damage with the set, right? I would never run into PvP with a set that's like literally this low HP, but let's say I were to, right? What it would do is, it would do this thing called level scale to your level, and your stats would go down to the max that's at that level, 183. If this were to move up to 220, you're looking at damage output like nothing else that we've seen in PvP. Like a 40% increase on a base of 180. That's like a big deal. You might see damage schools actually start to compete a little bit more with more defensive stats like resist and HP. Let's not forget, if you've been watching my jewel audit videos, there's also going to be thousands more HP to go around. So I don't really think that health is actually going to be a weak stat. I just think the damage might be able to be used to leverage against resist a little bit more, which is kind of weird. Resist is actually supposed to counter damage. That's just how math works. But resist doesn't seem to be growing at the rate the damage is. And when you have spells like Shrike that just literally, you know, counter resist fully, it's going to make your damage shine even more. So it doesn't seem like a direct buff against resist, but I do think in PvP, you're going to see a lot of like changes when it comes to like what you're threatening in Strike, what you're threatening on a day-to-day. You're going to have reasons to maybe even like, you know, max tier some of these things because a multiplier on these things are increasing. There's going to be all kinds of ways to like, you know, like increase your damage now because we're talking about much, much bigger numbers. We might see a swing from what is now a pretty defensive heal spam meta. We might see a shift to a more offensive damage related meta. So you're just going to see a fast faster paced meta. We'll see if it's unbalanced. I'm of the opinion that I think people like faster metas more, but I think they tend to be a little bit more unbalanced if you don't get it right. So I hope the stats are actually good on this. I mean, time will tell. The other thing that I feel like, I don't know if it's too good to be true or not, but right now, right, the same stat caps that affect level 160 PvP are also applied when you do raids. If damage is going to go up by that much, and I assume pierce and health and all that, then something that's super challenging right now, like the Crying Sky raid, which very, very few people have been actually able to beat even after the world's first clear, it might become quite a bit easier, and that makes sense. I mean, there's level 170 gear that people are probably going to want to farm for from this. This will give you level 170 gear, presumably, if it's like the last raid. So it might be quite a bit easier. I will say this, I think what makes this raid very, very different is, yes, there is combat. Yes, you have to like organize in a team to make a good set of moves, but beyond the combat, there's level of cohesion and people need to know where to go. People need to know exactly what role they are. Like, people need to have a path in mind. People need to plan way ahead. There's so much more to this raid than just killing bosses that I actually think it might not make it as much easier as something like the previous raid, the Voracious Void raid. I don't know if y'all remember, but the Voracious Void raid, the second Novus came out and you could actually like make your raid gear that was 150 at the time into 160, the second you could do that, it became a cakewalk. You would just spam AoEs. It'd be very, very easy. They've actually made it a little bit harder, I think, because I think it's harder to AoE when they're literally banned, right? They PvP banned Dragoon amulet hits, which was like a big part of every strategy. So yes, it's gotten harder, but it got a lot easier first. So maybe for the people that have given up on the raid, it might be like a silver lining. These stat caps are gonna make things a lot easier. I think the big potential part of this update that I'm very, very excited for is maybe a challenge mode on a sigil, just on one instance, even if they could manage to make it in time. Because while PvE, I'm sure the damage will go like crazy, right? 250, 260. But let's say that a Storm is running the stat cap at advanced content for PvP raids and challenge modes, right? That's like 220. It would still be really, really cool to like do a main boss in Wallaru, maybe get increased drop rates because it's more challenging and you have to obey the stat caps that raids and PvP follow. These are lower stat caps, but I would assume maybe if it's more challenging, you could get better drops. I feel like maybe if they're gonna really make stat caps this cool, it can make for very interesting challenges that we haven't seen yet. So whether you're somebody that, you know, is constantly trying to get the maximum damage in the game, whether you're a PvPer, a raider, or someone who's interested in the challenge modes that Wiz is putting out, all that advanced content stuff, this is gonna be a big update for you. And I'm really, really happy that this update feels like it's gonna be so big. I could be overhyping it. I definitely feel like it's gonna have a bigger impact on customizability of stats, even more than last update. I feel like the pins are really cool. Like, they added mending pins, they added like damage pins. Like, it actually made for some cool strats every now and then. But this is an update that's related to your main school. I think that's a much bigger deal for a lot of people. Let me know what you guys think all of this extra damage that's coming in the wallaru update is gonna do to the game. I will read all of them. Drop a like if you enjoyed, leave a sub if you're new, and if somebody hasn't told you you're awesome today, they doing something. I'll see y'all soon. Stay awesome, y'all. And yeah.